Hey everybody, this is Brad from Johnson Small Engines, better known as the one-handed mechanic. If I can do it, you can too. Today we are working on a John Deere LX176, and I'm going to show you how to install a transmission drive pulley because this gentleman thought he had a bad transmission, and just because I've done this a while, I just knew that these transmissions are bulletproof, and if you have one that is not going forward and backward and your drive belt seems to be okay, this is probably the issue with the transmission drive pulley going. So I'm going to show you parts and tools needed today. Okay, I'm going to use a drill with a wire wheel on the end. I'm going to use a couple different wire brushes to clean off the shaft on the input shaft on the transmission. 13mm socket, a 1/4" ratchet that I always use, and if use whatever, as long as you have a 13mm, it's good. We're going to use a pair of external snap ring pliers, and you want to. This is an external snap ring, but these pliers here just have two little tips at the end. And if you're careful, you can spread. This is basically my picture that I drew for you guys. You'll see it when we get in there. This is the part number for this clip if needed. Now this is for an LX176, so just keep that in mind. A couple pair of pry bars to pry up on the plastic knob. I have a copper base anti-seize, and I use the spray base a lot too. You may need a socket or something to push on the transmission drive pulley to get it down over the shaft if needed. PB blaster is definitely needed. This is the transmission fan for the hydro transmission on the LX176. I didn't want to do the job without a fan. This is the number here. I'll put all these in the link in the description below, and if I can find a part number for these clip rings or something that you guys can order them from, I'll also put this in the link in the description below. This is the transmission drive pulley and the part number. So I will put all this stuff in the link in the description below if needed. I don't know if I went across a mallet, just so you can tap on the socket if needed. All right, let's get to it. This knob's got to come off. Easiest way that I take this knob off is 2 pry bars, 1 pry bar on top and 1 pry bar underneath. And we try to pry them up at the same time like that, and it'll eventually pop off. If you don't do it evenly, you can break them. And once you get it out to a point, but that's pretty much it. There is when you put it back on, there's a flat spot right here on, it's really hard to see, but it's right here. And then when you go in, you're not gonna be able to see this, but inside here, I'll show it to you when we get this fender deck off. You have to take the seat off. Being that this is an old tractor, the seat switch little tang right here is actually broken, and but it still works. If you have to, you can always use a zip tie and zip tie it together, but the little tang here that holds it to the safety switch here is broken, but this has to go down through here, and you take off undo your knobs to your seat, and you should be able to either slide the machine, just the seat off. I think it's it'll slide off. Yeah, you go down to the end here, and then you pull it up. Now, be careful with your wire that comes in the bottom of your seat. It just comes through like that, and it hangs there. Take your seat out of the way. It looks like we have mice. It's been a very long time since this guy thought about getting it fixed, and this right here is signs of mice. We have to get these bolts off. These, I think, are 13mm. Take the rear off here. And there is 2 nuts on the front of the machine. Okay, I'm going to briefly show you where there is a nut that we have to take off this side. There's one on this side and there's one on the inner side. It's right here. And then we're going to go around to the other side. Okay, so the other side is right here, and it's just 1 nut. Everything that I'm taking off from the fender deck, it has been a 13mm socket. Now the fender deck should be able to be lifted up off of here. So let's see what happens. Okay, so that's pretty much it. You just have 2 bolts and 2 nuts to take this off. Hard part is one person taking it off. You have to get the stud out from this side, and there's a stud that sits down on this side. I just pull them back briefly, a little bit at a time, and then you have to make sure that the wire for your seat switch gets pushed down in. And just remember to put that back on. We're going to go ahead and just lift this off the back, set it off to the side. All right, we definitely have a mouse nest. We're gonna go ahead and clean this up real quick and I'll get right back with you. Okay, so I didn't want to bore you guys with me cleaning all this off. The nice thing is you can keep the fuel cap on when you take the fender deck off, which is really nice. You don't get debris in the tank. And this is the hydraulic reservoir for the hydrostatic transmission. And I had to clean all that out around there. But going back to this, where I said there's a flat spot here, there's a flat spot on this shaft right here. And just make sure when you put this back in, that you put flat spot on flat spot, push it in, you're good to go. All right, so now we have to take off the fuel tank, and I'm gonna try to take this off out of the way. This is getting to the transmission drive pulley. We are gonna do the transmission drive belt in a little bit, but let me just take this up. It should slide up and off. Be careful that you don't bring up the hydraulic reservoir, the hydrostatic reservoir, because it'll pull it out of transmission. All right, let's see what we got here. We have a little bit of dirt here, but here is the problem, okay? Now I haven't had this apart, and I'm gonna go ahead right now and push in your brake / clutch, and that should relieve the tension on the belt, and then put your emergency brake lever on. Now the belt tension, I'm just gonna check, yeah. So that relieves our belt tension, and you can see that this is spinning freely, and it shouldn't. Okay, so now what we have to do is, this is really rusty. I'm going to try to soak this. I'm going to use a little bit of a PB blaster, just soak it around that clip ring. It takes a little tool like this to get this clip ring off, and it's got 2 little eyelets in here. And I hope we can save this. Your best bet if you're doing this job is to get yourself a brand new clip. We have to save the clip here, and it's really, as long as they're not stretched out. If you open them up too far, you can stretch them out. So just remember the gap should be pretty small. Okay, I'm gonna clean this up before we use it now. There's a washer on top, and I'm gonna take off this fan. Now, I just assumed that this fan was bad, and it definitely looks like it's been waddling back and forth on this pulley for quite some time. Let me put it back in here and see it. It's really wobbling back and forth. So I'm glad I got the fan. I got the fan form. We got the drive pulley now. This is where I'm gonna take this drive pulley off. If you're only doing this drive pulley system, it's real easy to do by taking that fender deck off. You wanna take a look at the shaft on your transmission right here, and make sure these splines are not ruined. Usually it's the aluminum pulley that goes bad. If you look inside here, there's supposed to be splines in here, and I don't see any whatsoever. So let's go ahead and get the new one. Okay, here's the new one from John Deere. Old versus new. You see the splines inside that center? And nothing here. So the splines inside the center right there, brand new pulley. Make sure you match them up, make sure they're the same. And this one is. I would definitely, you don't necessarily have to put never sees on here, because these are supposed to be tight. And granted, by the time they wear out again, I'm sure they're gonna be extremely, make sure you put on the right way. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wire brush. I'm having a hard time pushing this down on there. I don't wanna get it stuck. Okay, so I had to do a little bit more sanding on the shaft. Make sure your shaft is nice and clean. I got it to go up and down now pretty easily, and I'm not gonna force the issue right now because we still have a little bit of corrosion. I think the pulley has paint on the inside too, because obviously this is pretty thick paint, and that might be some of the reason why this is not going down. But it is, now I have it going on and off fairly easily. And the never sees definitely helped. If you don't need a transmission drive belt, there is a guide right here. This guide that goes across. And when you put the pulley down and you put the belt around it, it has to go between here, right here, and over here, okay? So if you're doing this without needing a transmission drive belt, this guy here is definitely needing a transmission drive belt. The belt here should be over here like this. You're gonna go ahead and put the belt on your pulley first. Make sure your emergency brake is on, and you're gonna just slide it down. you got to make sure that this belt goes between the pulley guides right here, right there and there. Now at this point, you're going to tap it all the way down. You can go ahead and put a socket on top of it. I think I used a 7/8 socket right there. Rubber mallet. Goes down all the way until you feel it bottom out. Like that. Now, right here, you have to make sure that you can get your clip ring to seat inside that groove. Very important. I do have this all the way down, as you can see over here, where the belt is inside this guide, and also on the other side here, it's inside the guide. Okay, you're gonna go ahead and put the fan on. And then this one had a washer that went here, and where you put your clip is right here. All right, and you got to make sure it's in the slot. What I normally do is I'll turn it left and right until it finds the slot, and then you let go. Make sure that's not coming out. Now, this isn't right. This is not. There's too much play. I remember back in the day, there used to be a spring washer that took up this play. All right, let's go. So I got one washer, got the clip ring. Let's go take a look. I want to show you guys what I found on the computer. Okay, so what I have found is they have the fan right there. Number 19 is the fan. Number 24 is a steel lock washer. Not sure why that would be a lock washer over the fan. And then number 20, they're calling it a steel round hole washer, which is the one that we have. So they're saying put a lock washer there. I guess that might have been a spring washer at one point, or maybe that is the spring washer. I'm not gonna go ahead and order it though, because I know we just need to fill up that gap right there. All right, so I'm gonna take this back off again, this clip, and you have to be careful you don't stretch the clip. So you just wanna open it just enough to get it over the shaft. All right, so that's that washer here. I just found in my scrap pile of washers, and it's basically almost the same thickness. All right, so this is the two thicknesses that we're using right here. And I do believe that it was a spring washer back in the day, but they're calling it a lock washer maybe? I don't know, maybe they have that messed up. These are old machines, and maybe somebody who did the online parts. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back down there, and I try to slide it around the groove just to make sure it's gonna fit. Okay, so this is much better. It doesn't wiggle that much. I would just say if you come across this and you don't have a spring washer with you, you're gonna have to fill up that gap so it's not fluttering around. You also have to make sure that nothing is binding anywhere. Okay, this one is good and it's not binding. I could see down here it got close to something at some point, but it's all good. There's nothing binding. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put the gas tank back in. And the gas tank slides in right here. There's a bracket back here in the back of the gas tank here, and there's also one on the side, so that's how you're gonna line it up in the back. And it also goes right over your hydraulic reservoir, hydrostatic reservoir. You gotta keep this wire here for the seat in a position where it was at so it can go up through the fender deck. I'm gonna go ahead and put the fender deck back on again. Okay, so I have the fender deck here, and it can be a little bit tricky getting it down. What I normally do is I lean the front end down, try to get it sitting on the brackets down at the front there. And you do have to come up with the studs in the front. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna put the wire that goes to your seat, I'm gonna put it through the hole now, so it's sticking out there. And then I'm gonna try to do one side at a time here. This bracket here, you can see where the wear mark is, where the stud goes through. And underneath here, there's a stud. It's a carriage bolt that basically it's underneath this plastic right here. And you have to, you gotta be very careful that you don't want to scratch anything. Depending on how good of shape everything is in, you don't want to scratch it. So I'm picking it up, I'm gonna lay it on top there, then I'm gonna go underneath. You can see right here, the bolt's sitting here, and we need to go through this hole. You can just look for the wear mark where the nut was. And I'm gonna try to pick it up, bring it over, and eventually it drops down. And what I do is, you're gonna press up here, you're gonna press down on your carriage bolt right here. And I'm just gonna put the nut on. I don't wanna lose it or have it pop up, so I'm gonna put the nut in there. We're gonna go around to the other side. Okay, so as you can see, it's not quite lined up, and it takes a little bit of just wiggling it one way or the other. There it is. And you get it lined up. And then put the nut on. At this point, I'm gonna go ahead to the back where the seat goes on, right here, and we're gonna line it back up right where the bolts go through. So I always put the hardware in first before I tighten it up. 13 millimeter. Okay, we're all tight there. We need to put the seat back on. Now the seat, when you put it on, what you want to do first is you want to put the wire for your seat switch through the hole in the bottom of the seat. Then you're going to put your seat in the front stud underneath the front of the seat here. The other side, right there. Lift up the seat, put your plastic knobs on, and you don't want to tighten them up yet because you need to slide the seat back to where you want it. You have to have these knobs very loose to be able to slide your seat forward and backwards, so just keep that in mind. And try to pull all the slack for your seat switch. Again, like I said, this guy is missing his piece here. I'm probably going to go ahead and put a zip tie around that. But let's go ahead and put the seat down. Try to figure out a nice spot. I'm not sure exactly where you had it. It's probably a good idea to mark your position on your seat before you take it off. I'm going to go by the wear marks that I found here on the rail here. So I'm going to probably move it down a little bit more. Try to get the seat back in position he had it. And go ahead and tighten these down. All right. So that's pretty much it for how to install the transmission drive pulley on a John Deere LX176. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Please subscribe, tell your friends about my channel, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.